Ever just catch yourself kind of zoning out? Like you're going through the motions, but not really present? Like you've been on autopilot for an hour?
Yeah, I think we all have those moments.
Right. It's like, wait, is this it? And it's interesting because today's deep dive is all about that feeling of really being engaged in life versus just kind of sleepwalking through it.
And what's really cool is we've got these teachings from a spiritual master. They're called the maestro in this text.
Yeah.
And they have a really unique perspective on this.
So tell me more about this maestro. What's their take?
Well, they actually redefine this word we use all the time, entertainment.
Okay. And we're not just talking about like Netflix and video games, right?
Right. It goes way deeper than that.
Yeah.
The maestro is saying that entertainment can be anything that pulls us away from our true purpose, anything that keeps us from really being present.
So like even if it's something that seems productive on the surface, it could still be a form of entertainment if it's ultimately a distraction.
Exactly. It's about the underlying motivation.
Yeah.
Are we doing something because it's truly meaningful? Or are we using it to avoid facing something within ourselves?
So it's like that urge to constantly check your phone, even if you're not really enjoying it. It's like a reflex to avoid being present with your thoughts and feelings.
Right. Or even just burying yourself in work to avoid dealing with a difficult emotion. Those can all be forms of entertainment in a way, because they're ultimately about checking out.
Wow, it's like we're surrounded by distractions disguised as obligations.
And you know what's fascinating? The maestro says even those on a spiritual path aren't immune to this. They even share this funny story about a time when they got caught up in this kind of cosmic entertainment before reaching a higher level of understanding.
Wait, even a spiritual master gets distracted? What happened?
Well, they were so awestruck by the wonders of the universe that for a while, they lost sight of their true purpose. It's like they got lost in the wonder of it all.
That is kind of reassuring, actually, that even someone so advanced could get caught up like that. Makes this whole thing feel a little less daunting. So if we're all susceptible to this, even spiritual masters, what's the alternative? Are we supposed to give up everything and become hermits?
That's the thing. It's not about rejecting the world. It's not about rejecting the world or even like living some super minimalist lifestyle. It's more about how we relate to the world.
So instead of focusing on what we're doing, it's about how we're doing it. I can see how that'd be easy to misunderstand, though.
Absolutely. It's not about giving up everything. The maestro's really big on this point, that even the simplest actions, like even making the bed or cooking a meal, can be an expression of your true purpose.
Okay, that's interesting. But how do we make that leap? Going from feeling like you're just on autopilot to like every little thing is infused with meaning and purpose.
Right, and it is a big shift, but it doesn't happen overnight. The maestro talks about it more like a practice, like a gradual awakening. And they say a good place to start is to really pay attention to your experiences, like what truly brings you joy, a deep sense of satisfaction versus what leaves you feeling kind of drained or empty afterward.
That makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a big difference between like the quiet joy I feel after a good yoga session and that kind of restless energy after scrolling through social media for an hour,
Yeah.
They're both relaxing in the moment, but one definitely feels more nourishing.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the maestro is getting at, this ability to really discern between what truly nourishes us on a deeper level
Yeah.
and what's just a temporary distraction, like a quick hit of dopamine.
And I think we all have those things, right? Where it feels good in the moment, but afterward, you're like, why do I even do that?
And the maestro would say that true lasting joy, the kind that really stays with you, that comes from aligning with your inner self, like tapping into that wisdom and joy that's already within you.
So instead of constantly looking outside ourselves for that fulfillment, it's about cultivating it from within.
I love that. And it makes me think of something else the maestro talks about, these scratches of light.
Oh, yeah.
What are those?
So imagine that every action you take, every choice you make, it's like you're taking a needle and scratching a tiny mark onto the surface of the universe.
Okay.
And most of the time, we're not even aware we're doing it, right? We're just going through the motions, lost in thought, distracted. But the maestro is saying that when we bring conscious awareness to even the smallest tasks, it becomes a scratch of light, like a way of bringing more beauty and intentionality into the world. Wow, that's beautiful. So it's not about having to make these big, grand gestures. It's really about those everyday moments and just bringing more presence and purpose to them. I love this idea that we can create these scratches of light in our everyday lives. It's really inspiring, but I have to admit, it also feels kind of daunting. Like, where do we even begin? How do we actually cultivate that level of awareness in real life,
Yeah.
with all its distractions?
That's such a good point. And the maestro really emphasizes that this isn't about like striving for some perfect state of constant awareness. We're human. We get distracted, we zone out. It
So
happens.
it's okay if we fall back into those old patterns. We don't have to beat ourselves up about it.
Exactly.
Self-compassion is huge. The maestro actually gives some really practical advice for how we can start to cultivate more awareness in our lives.
Mm.
Like, they talk a lot about the importance of self-observation, just noticing your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, without judgment.
So it's like becoming this curious observer of your own inner world. Like, oh, look at that. My mind is going down that rabbit hole of worry again.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly. Like almost a sense of detachment from it. You're not getting so caught up in the thoughts and feelings themselves. You're just noticing them arising and passing.
And from that place of observation, then we can start to make more conscious choices.
Exactly. And the maestro also reminds us that we don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Like, seeking guidance is really important, whether it's through prayer or meditation, connecting with nature, or even just talking to a trusted teacher or mentor. It's like that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But we have to be open to receiving that guidance.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes a certain amount of humility to admit that we don't have all the answers. And, that actually brings us to another important point that the maestro makes about discernment.
Discernment. How do they talk about that?
So as we cultivate this awareness and as we start seeking guidance, the maestro says we also start to develop a finer sense of what truly nourishes us versus what's just a temporary escape.
Oh, I like that. So it's like we're asking ourselves, is this feeding my soul or just my need for distraction? Is this in alignment with my true purpose, or am I just trying to numb out for a bit?
Right, exactly. It's like we become more discerning consumers of our own experiences because let's face it, we're bombarded with distractions all day long.
All day long. That's the truth. But then that begs the question, how do we even know what our true purpose is? That's always felt kind of big and mysterious to me.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something that the maestro addresses directly. They actually say that our true purpose isn't necessarily something we find out there in the world, but it's something that we cultivate. It's about aligning with our deepest values, with the things that bring us a sense of genuine joy and fulfillment.
So it's less about having some big aha moment where it all becomes clear,
Mm.
and more about paying attention to what already lights us up, what feels most true and authentic to who we are.
Exactly. And then, bringing those scratches of light into it. Each time we act with intention, with awareness, we're moving closer to that alignment. We're fulfilling our own unique purpose.
I love that. It makes it feel so much less overwhelming. It's
Yeah.
not about having it all figured out perfectly right away. It's just about taking those small, conscious steps in the right direction.
Yes. And the maestro reminds us that those small steps, those scratches of light, they create a ripple effect, not just in our own lives, but in the world around us.
It's like this whole conversation has been a scratch of light for me,
Mm.
honestly. It's really got me thinking about what it means to live a more conscious and intentional life. So as we wrap up today, is there like one final gem of wisdom from the maestro that we can leave our listeners with?
What really stuck with me is when they said true joy isn't found in the absence of challenges, but in the courage to face them with an open heart.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful reminder that life is always going to have its ups and downs, you know? But it's how we choose to move through those experiences that really matters, with awareness, with purpose, with love.
It's about choosing to be the creators of our own stories, not just passive consumers of entertainment. So to our listeners, here's a final thought to ponder as you go about your day. If your life were a story, what would be its defining theme? What kind of story are you writing with your everyday choices? Choose wisely, because you are the author of your own life.